I'm back. Technical challenges of all of these planetary retrogrades and my not so techno savvy self. So forgive me. But in this journey, I have learned about choices. And I find that in our emotional evolution, it's all about the choices that we want to make in our lives. And when we don't choose, like when we think we're waiting or, let me just see, maybe, that's still a choice. And that choice is for non-progression, non-growth. But when we say yes, and when we choose to move forward into things that sometimes are scary or we have to take a risk, those choices tend to pay off, and we have new experiences that allow us to grow and expand. So I wanted to share just a little bit because, survival of the fittest is based on our ability to adapt and to change with the new landscape, the demands. And right now we're making giant shifts in energy and frequency as a planet. These earth changes, with the frequency and the vibration, raising. And we can actually measure these frequencies with dowsing or geopathic devices. We can measure the Schumann resonance field and the polar axis and the tectonic plate activity. So the Earth is evolving herself, and she's taking us on this ascension journey. So many of us came here at this time to actually participate and assist with this ascension, and we were born for this time of change. So this is exciting for me. And I feel like all along my journey, I have been learning how to show up 100% and be present at this particular time in our evolution. So the 5 conscious choices that lead to evolving you from a Homo sapien, which is just, living on the planet, to HomoLuminous, which is a light being, one that can ascend within the frequencies and vibrations. The Homo sapien is where everything happens to you, and the HomoLuminous is where everything is happening for you, and you're becoming an extension of that source light and understanding that we are all rays of the one sun. And this is what I call the wake up time. This is the number one choice that we make, is to wake up or to stay asleep. This pivotal moment is when you kind of know there's something more, like you may be missing something. Maybe you don't fit in. You're feeling like, I have something that's just doesn't set with me. It just doesn't feel right. It's tugging at me. It's pulling at me. And you don't often know what or where to go or what's next. Like, what is this feeling? So I wanted to share with you my story of my beginnings, because it was learning how to navigate the emotional terrain and learning how to understand the body, because the body can only be obedient to what you tell it, to those neurochemicals that you send it. And so the feedback that you get from the body is this huge message for how to live authentically and in sincerity, and my favorite word, in congruency. So our soul and our spirit, they speak to our self through emotion, and that emotion is how they speak to the body. Psychologists have said that we've experienced all emotion by the time we're 3. We've experienced it, witnessed it from our caregivers. Our biggest exposure was in the womb. And where, this is where mom's neurochemicals and hormones were running through us every second of every day, and we were imprinting. So my story goes like this. I was about 27, 28 years old, and I had lived a life of pain. Headaches, backaches, fatigue, feeling so tired. And I would just heap this guilt and shame onto myself because I'm a young mother. I'm supposed to be taking care of my children and cleaning my house and doing all the housewifey things. And I just would want to like take some Tylenol and go to sleep, like just escape and avoid the world. But then that was causing me to heap on a lot of guilt and shame because you're not doing all the things that you should be doing. I was also part of a religious culture that had a lot of expectations on women and home life and family, mothering and wifing. And so that added a lot of extra pressure as I thought I needed to be perfect and perform. So with my experience of these migraines, I would go to different doctors and they would tell me, well, that's just stress. And I would think, okay, so, but are you sure it's not a tumor? Because like, if you could just take the tumor out of my brain, then I could be better. Let's do that. No, there's no tumor, nope, there's no this, there's no that. It's stress. But at that time, stress was such an ambiguous word. It's like, what does it mean? Like, what is stress? And maybe they would give me a pill or a narcotic or something that, would help knock me out even more, numb me out even more. And then I couldn't function. And they usually only lasted in their efficacy for maybe a week or so. And then I was back to having all the migraines and the body aches and the fatigue and the pain. So I remember one day just saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to talk to my higher source, and I'm going to actually put a demand and ask for a sign. And I don't care that you're not supposed to do this because you could get struck down with lightning, all of my old beliefs, right? I'm going to do it anyway. And so I said, I don't feel like being here on the planet anymore in this condition. So I will go to the doctor one more time. But if the doctor says to me the word stress, I will know that is my sign that I can go home. And I felt like I had an agreement, like, yeah, go do that. Yeah, go do that. So I started thinking, I don't know a doctor. We're new to this area. I don't even have a doctor. So what do? You go to your best friend, right? So I went to my best friend and I said, I'm going to try a doctor for these migraines and backaches. And I would really love it if you could refer me to someone. And she said, you know what? I know of this brand new doctor in town. He's only been here around 6 months. I would love to go to him, but I work for my doctor and that wouldn't look, kosher. So I could definitely get you his name and number. And because he's so new, I bet you could get in right away. So I called him, got in like the first part of the next week. And he didn't know that I'm sitting in his foyer, wringing my hands, like just cold sweats and shaking. And this was life or death for me, right? It was like, oh, you're going to get this sign or you're going to get that sign. And then you're going to follow through because you're loyal and committed to, I always keep my word as best that I can. So I went in and got called in there, and he's, he was a different kind of doctor. He didn't start off with the particulars of tell me about, the history of your parents, and their diseases and illnesses and so forth. He sat me down and started looking through his charts and just said, so Renee, tell me about your mom. And I went, oh, you mean the mom that wanted to abort me? The mom that was never there? The mom that was neglectful? The mom that would beat me? And he was like, oh, well, I can see that has a lot of energy charge for you. Maybe you could tell me about your dad. Well, yeah, the dad that was never there, emotionally unavailable, physically unavailable, never said I love you, on and on and on. So, oh, okay. Well, you're married, right? And have kids? Tell me about your husband. Okay, the husband that's in law school. Yeah, never there. Such a martyr, has to do everything and then make me feel even guilty because I didn't have the energy to do the dishes or he says, okay, just stop. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm telling you my story, right? We have such an attachment to our story. And he said, you know what? I don't feel like this is anything that I could do for you physically. He said, honestly, I feel like it would serve you to talk to someone. And so he was writing out this little prescription. He goes, I know this great therapist down the hall. You could probably get into her really quickly. And I don't know her personally, but I've had, heard good things. And so as he handed me this little prescription saying I could go talk to somebody, I had this horrible, horrible, terrifying feeling that my husband is in law school. And I've always thought that if you talk to somebody, that's kind of admitting a little bit like you're crazy. And he could take my children away. Like I'm sitting there in the courtroom and I'm listening. I mean, and this is in a nanosecond, right? My brain's active. I'm sitting there and the judge is saying, yep, right, yep, she's had to go see a therapist. And so, yeah, she shouldn't have her kids. And I was like, I can't breathe. And then he said, follow up with me and let me know how you're doing. So I walked out of his office and I was like, oh, well, I get, he didn't say the word stress. So I guess I'm supposed to stay around for a while. I will go and I will set up an appointment. So I poked my head into the office and the receptionist was there. And I said, I have this little certificate. I have this little prescription that says I get to talk to somebody. And she said, oh, wonderful. Well, our therapist is in Europe and she'll be back in 3 weeks. And I heard out of my mouth, like involuntarily say, oh, well, I don't know if I'll be around in 3 weeks. And then I shut the door and her face was just like, and I walked out to the parking lot to get in my car and I heard this voice. And I've heard voices my entire life, so it didn't shock me to hear a voice. But it was different. It was like, this is great. Now you can choose how you want it to be. And I was like, I'm a little bit confused. Choose how I want what to be. You're healing. You can choose now how you want it to be. Oh, wow. I have choices? Yeah, how do you want it to be? And then it all just flooded into my mind. Okay, well, I'd like to speak to a woman because I don't want to speak to a male therapist that just tells me it's all hormonal and, I'm just a woman and it's just how women are. They're just so emotional, I'd really rather speak to a woman. Okay, like check. And then, okay, well, and I'd like it to be with somebody who would honor my belief system because I really don't want somebody telling me that, well, if you didn't believe in God and have all these pressures to be this perfect person and all these religious, demands, you'd be happier. Check. And then the last one was, oh gosh, it needs to be affordable because I only know that psychiatrists charge about $300 an hour, and I'm pretty sure in law school we don't have that kind of money. We don't even have insurance. Check. And I was like, it could really be that easy? And they go, yeah. So next step, what are you going to do? So I went back to my same friend and I said, okay, I have this prescription that I get to talk to somebody. Do you happen to know of anybody that is a woman and could honor my belief system and be affordable? And she said, yeah, I do. Actually, I've been going to somebody, this new person who's doing this new thing called Rapid Eye. And I'm looking at my best friend like, how is it that I don't know this? We are best friends. We share each other, everything with each other. And I says, well, is it working? And she goes, yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. So she gave me her number. I called her. I had an appointment that week and I walked in. Out in the, this was in Salem, Oregon, out the outskirts, and it's all foresty and beautiful, and it smells so good. And I drove outside of town to where they were, and there was a barn. And I looked at this barn, and I was looking around for a house, no house. And so she came out and said, oh, hey, it's so good to see you. Come on in. We walked into a room. They were building the barn first, so it could be a healing center, and then they were going to build a home. And the healing room that I was in was just plywood and this old couch and a ball hanging from the ceiling. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm in the right place. And she said, no, yeah, this is, I'm Renee Johnson and I'm doing the rapid eye therapy. And yeah, you're in the right place. So she says, here, lie down, And I remember for an hour just bawling and so much emotional stuff coming up. And then all of a sudden I got this clear, distinct thought, wait a minute, I'm here to talk about my migraines and my backaches. And she said, I know. Isn't it great? And I'm like, no, we haven't said one word about my migraines or my backaches. She said, no, I know. It's really, no, this is great. And I was going, no, all I'm doing is like talking about my mother. I know, isn't it great? You got to love a therapist that thinks everything like that is just great, because she's gave me this new learning and understanding that when we're going through emotional healing, we need somebody there to hold space for our trek through all of this history and these past emotions and pain and perceptions and beliefs and patterns, that we're wading through and wanting to unload. So then she started to teach me about mind-body connection and where things live in the body, and where my not good enough lived, and where my unwanted lived, and where my rejection lived. So I walked out of that first appointment and I could see the stars so clearly. I felt like light as a feather. And I felt for the first time in a long time, there was hope. And I drove home still thinking, I don't know, this is like really weird. This is not me, laying on a couch with a therapist behind me writing down everything I'm saying. This is me watching a ball go back and forth from the ceiling and just, talking about emotions, crying a lot. But there was something to it. So I came back for the next one. And this time I had a sinus infection. And she said, oh, yeah, we can work on that. Yep, rapid eye, Reiki, we can get rid of that. And I'm like, well, what's Reiki? So then she started telling me about Reiki. And I said, I'll give you the migraines. But I didn't create a sinus infection. Why would I do that to myself? Those are painful. Why would I create a sinus infection? She goes, well, you want to know what sinus infection represents. And of course, she pulls out her Louise Hay book, Heal the Body. And it represented being irritated at someone close to you. And my husband and I had just been fighting. I was so irritated at him. I was so mad at him. I always kind of had a little bit of a towards him, because we were so different and I didn't ever feel valued or honored by him. So I created more disvalue and more non-honoring. So we ran it all. And when I walked out of there, I didn't have any more sinus pressure and I didn't have any more sinus infections. So I said, wow, there is really something to this mind-body thing. Because prior to any of this, I just thought you think what you think. Your thoughts are just random thoughts, and they're real, and you should believe them because they're telling this accurate history of yourself. And then I learned, no, that's not necessarily true. You have perceptions and you have choices. So as part of that story, I want to go back to the womb, right? My mother had gotten pregnant outside of marriage at the age of 19. She was in college. She was a cheerleader, all feisty and bubbly. And she got set up on a date with my dad because their parents were friends. And after about 2 or 3 dates and one sexual encounter, they decided they didn't really like each other and they broke up. They weren't going to date anymore. Well, 3 months, into it, my mother is pregnant and she can't be a cheerleader anymore, right? Because you can't be a cheerleader and be pregnant. Dropped out of college, and my dad he was just out of the Army and he was going to work for the operating engineers. So he would travel a lot. They got forced into a shotgun wedding. Our reputations are not going to be ruined in this small town. So you're going to do the right thing, even if it's for all the wrong reasons. So here's what was going on in utero that was imprinting on me. My mother did not want me, unwanted. My mother wanted to abort me. Ooh, really unwanted. The timing was not good, right? And she had no way of wanting to take care of me. So there was a lot of resentment. I'm just this young person. I was going to go off to college, and now you've ruined my life. And very lonely, because she didn't have a lot of pregnant friends to hang out with. You know, once she was out of college and everything, she was just kind of relegated to a trailer in a trailer park where my grandparents could kind of oversee things. So what was running through me? Unwanted resentment, body shaming, because now she didn't have her cute body a little anymore. She had to let go of things. She felt trapped and stuck, and a lot of fear about what the future was going to hold, a lot of guilt and shame about having, sex outside of marriage and now being caught, right? Because here it is, showing in your belly. Feeling unloved. My dad and her, they didn't love each other. So there was a lot of like, what are we doing together? Raising a kid for what? And sadness and depression. And my mother had already a lithium imbalance. So depression became something that was passed on to me as well, because you can't pass something on to your child that you don't have. So if you have a lithium imbalance, you're going to pass on low lithium. And so I really started diving in to learn about these neurochemicals that are produced by these emotions and where they end up landing in the body. And I have to tell you, it's amazing how all of us start as little embryos, and we all get imprinted. Nobody gets to get away from that, because everyone starts in a womb. Now, the womb could be a completely different environment for you. The womb could be loving and they wanted you and all of that, and that will reflect in your perceptions and those imprints that are starting to formulate in neural pathways. Or it could be that, it's a broken home and an unwed mother and, welfare and all of those different kinds of things that come into play. So everyone gets to start out the same way. There is no one thing better than the other. We're sponges, and we just pick up what's happening. But my hard drive was being wired. And when your hard drive is being wired with these particular emotional components, you don't have words as an embryo. You don't have reasoning. Mom's just having a bad day. I'm sure it was something Dad said. It's not me. No, it's becomes you, because it's now in your cellular material. I have this modality that I absolutely love, and it's called inner scripting, and it reveals what was put on that hard drive before the age of 9, because psychologists say that everything that we have learned is by the age of 3, whether we've seen it, witnessed it, or felt it. But it's so simplified. It's like fear, glad, mad, sad as a child. It's only as we get into our adulthood that we start adding all the other words, all the other things that kind of help to somewhat remove us from those core emotions. But it's all part of the subconscious mind. And this brings awareness to our conscious mind about the language of emotion, because emotion is a language. And how adept and astute are you with understanding emotional language? It runs the perceptual programs in that hard drive, right? And so if we felt everything before the age of 3, there's a really good chance that in our adult life, we're being driven by our 5-year-old, especially if there was trauma, or if there was something that they got stuck in, or a belief that they had to adopt, because of sexual abuse or physical abuse or mental abuse. That all got imprinted. So emotion is a language. It's spoken to the body, and it's interpreted in this subconscious manner, and you can't hide it, right? It comes out in body language. It comes out in your eye movements. It comes out in your facial expressions, your twitches and your tells. All through my junior high and childhood, high school life, people would come up to me and they would say, "Smile, it can't be that bad." And I would just want to slap them. How do you know it's not that bad? Have you lived my life? Do you walk in my shoes? Do you come from this home? Because we all think things are happening to us, right, before we know. And we just can't imagine that somebody could come up and tell us something like that, except for that they read my face. They read my body language. They read my aura. They don't know exactly what's happening, but they're trying to get at a switch to give me some kind of motivation to change. Well, that gets old when that's all you hear. Oh, you're such a pretty girl. You know, if you just smile. Oh my goodness. So here's the first step, and I call it the work. This is where you are, well, actually it's the wake up. This is where you're having that moment where you're wanting to do something different, but you don't know what it is. So that's where we suggest therapies, you know, different modalities, different things that will get you to be able to look at some of your misconceptions, your erroneous feelings, right? All right, let's do this before my computer dies. And that is the best thing that you could ever do for yourself. The self-discovery process is so amazing. When you start learning what you're not, what you thought you were, but you're not, and then you start learning what you are, who you are, what you bring to the table in humanity, what toys you brought to the sandbox to play with all the other kids down here playing in the sandbox, it becomes so magical. So the next one is the work. And the work is where you start to release pain from the body. You start to release the psychosomatic symptoms that the body has. You learn about that mind-body connection, how one thing starts here and then it moves into the reality, the thought moves into the energy of action, and the action turns into a behavior, and the behavior turns into a result, and you have that thought process. Now, not all thoughts go out and create something. Some are just frivolous thoughts. But if you have thoughts from childhood that are connected to trauma, you're actually doing what I call research and development. Because let's say I have had trauma with sexual abuse. My brain has the ability to do three things, which is pretty much all it's looking to do for me. And that is find comparisons and differences and similarities. And everything that I see, my reticular activating system is just looking for those things as well, because it can't give attention to everything. So it's looking for, ooh, that's like this, so that's not scary. Or, oh, that's similar to this, so yeah, stay away from that. Or, well, that's different. Do I trust it or not trust it? You know, kind of running it through my perceptual belief system. So the brain is always active doing this for you. But whenever you become overreactive in an emotion or underreactive in an emotion, you are in a trigger. And those triggers can be looked at as messages from the body to help you do some self-discovery. So these modalities that we use to get to the root of the pain, that core issue, we peel off those layers because sometimes the subconscious will only reveal to you the emotional material that you are ready for at the time. I call that divine order and divine timing. But the key is, for me, I suggest to everyone, tell your secrets as fast as you can. Because anything that you perceive to be a secret that you're holding on to, something that you don't want somebody else to know, it is sucking your energy dry. And you are not living to your full potential, nor are you experiencing energy. You're just partaking it to all these little places so that it can keep this fresh and available for you, but it doesn't serve you in any other capacity except for to keep you in fear of somebody finding out that secret, or somebody seeing you as imperfect, somebody seeing your flaws, discovering your guilt and your shame. It keeps you vulnerable to those things in a very low vibration and frequency. So the sooner you share the secret, the sooner you look at all those parts of guilt and shame that you carry, and you speak these things out, and you shine some light on those shadow areas and begin to love them and embrace them and heal them up, letting that pain serve you, that's how you start to manage and grow. When we serve from our pain, that doesn't mean we're bringing our pain forward with us. It just means that everything that we went through, we are now qualified, as we have let it go and we have learned from it, to help somebody else who's gone through the same thing. And that's how we serve out of that pain, and we let it serve ourselves and we let it serve others. The mess that you feel like your life was made in, that messy area that you want to shun and avoid looking at, that becomes the message that actually saves your life and saves the lives of others as you share. It's absolutely an amazing thing. So I use shamanism, rapid eye, Reiki, Lahochi, evolutionary dowsing, and EMF protections, because I like to douse the houses that people live in so that they have a fresh energy there and frequency and vibration that's not being affected by the currents of green boxes and cell towers and Wi-Fi's and all of that kind of stuff. And they now have the ability to have their environment free of that so that their physical self doesn't have to fight all of that interference as well. I use shaman light language and the Muna key, inner scripting, drumming and sound healing, intuitive foot zoning. We now have the Healy frequency device, which I absolutely love, and I love to use it on myself and on others for information, intuitive information that you kind of know, and once it points it out to you, you're like, oh, yep, I knew that. And then personal empowerment, energy psychology, coaching, goddess self-image, photography, ecstatic dance, edu. I've been doing a lot of things for 30 years, and I continue to want to do a lot more things for the next 30 years. So every time you learn something new, your brain has to have a neural pathway to support that information. Every time you do the same old thing, you're just building that neural pathway more rigid, more crystallized, so it's on automatic pilot. But when you start shaking up your life and you start regridding your brain, oh my goodness, the energy that you receive back and the ahas and awareness and inspiration, all of that now has the opportunity to come to you. So the modalities that teach healthy ways to release emotion, we also talk about ways that are unhealthy in releasing emotion, and here's a few. So the modalities that are helpful are therapies, counseling, processing, energy work, your inner work, breath work, nature. Being out in nature is so expanding. Crystals and oils, stones, plant medicine. Screaming into a pillow is helpful. Screaming at another human is not. Yelling out in nature when you're by yourself and speaking it all out, getting it all out of that throat and that heart center is very helpful, but screaming at another person is not. So the idea is to not hurt other humans or to not do things that then you can't take back, because that creates karma. So if you're out in nature and you want to do some healthy releasing, yes, scream, yell, throw rocks, kick dirt. Anger, what a lot of people don't understand is anger is a release emotion. So that's why you want to spit out things and you want to punch and hit and throw things and you want to kick, because it wants to be released out of the appendages. It wants to go somewhere. So if you can shake your hands or, kick your feet or just, I always go, grrr, get it out of my center, because it wants a voice, because it's usually covering up hurt. It's usually covering up another emotion, and it wants to protect you and becomes defensive when it thinks it's been wronged. So talking and getting it all out also gives you this expression to get down to that part that goes, wow, that really hurt my feelings. I lashed out, but it really hurt my feelings. So hurt's different than anger, but anger is usually an emotion that people feel like they want to go to cover that up, because it's too hard to go to hurt first. And then, you can break sticks, you can write in your journal, tear out the paper, burn it in a safe manner, but no humans are getting hurt in the process. And that's what's important too. And you're not getting hurt in the process. You're not taking drugs, you're not cutting yourself. You're actually doing things that are releasing the emotions in a healthy way. So the old thing about what you resist persists is really true, because if you're constantly sending yourself, I'm not good enough, I can't do anything right, it's all my fault, and you start to become depressed, that depression can spiral down to where you no longer want to live, which we call apathy. And when you no longer want to live, that's suicide. You don't want to be here anymore. And I've been there. So I really encourage people to raise their frequency just a little bit higher and pursue the activities that can assist you and help you to do that. When in the past laid in a fetal position, with no energy to do anything, that is going back to the womb. That's another way of also going back to just really want to escape life and be back in a place where you didn't have to deal with anything. But that's not helpful, because anything that you're not expressing out, right, you're taking in, and all of that emotional energy is going to create damage within you if you're not getting it out of you, which is how we have the psychosomatic illnesses. So you want to pay attention to those psychosomatic illnesses and the messages that show up in the body, because I believe you can change your DNA. You can change that RNA from generational patterns and inherited emotional conditioning by looking at it, by healing it, by loving it, by embracing it and talking back to it and making sense of it with a new perception and a new reality. In one of my classes, I teach about reality, and reality is really just two people who share an illusion. So if I believe that men are bad or women are dominating, then all I have to do is find one more person who believes the same thing that I do, and I have a reality. And I can start to have a belief system that that's true. And I can start to live my life from the perception that that's true. And what will I do? Attract more and more and more of those situations where women are dominating to me or men can't be trusted to me, so that I can have more evidence. And the more evidence I get, then the more I believe in my reality. But it doesn't mean my reality was true to begin with. It just means that's what I adopted. That's what I wanted to believe in. So looking at our perceptions can shed a lot of light on what we believe, because we don't often believe really truthful things. They're mostly illusional things that we're attached to. So remembering sacred contracts is part of the therapy self-discovery process, recognizing spiritual signposts along the journey that remind us of who we are, and carrying a pouch of emotional coins and choosing how you would rather feel, right? So this is my trick. I put in my palm a coin, and on one side is heads, the other side is tails. But in my coin, if I'm feeling an emotion, okay, I'll say, oh gosh, I'm just feeling so sad right now. If I want to shift that emotion, I'll feel my sadness, but I'm not going to feel it forever. I'll give it 15 minutes and I'll wallow. But then I want to shift. And it's like, okay, what's the opposite of sadness for me? And that would be joy. So then I can start to think about joyful things, the things in my past that were joyful, the things in my future that I want to create that are joyful. So always carry your pouch of coins so that you can shift and flip the information. So the third part is suffering or surrender. We choose to suffer in our self-discovery process, or we can surrender to learn from ease and grace. And during this phase of our emotional evolution comes the choice to learn from pain or to learn from ease and grace. We get to choose. So paying attention to the emotions that grab our awareness and continue to define our place where we feel like we are is a way for us to grow. And not and understand, are we operating from the past? Are we operating from our ego? Are we operating from our attachments, our expectations, and our agreements that we've made passively or actively, knowingly or unknowingly? It gives us a really good opportunity to take a look, because we continue to learn how to navigate our subconscious messages throughout our whole life. We're going to be doing that. Nobody reaches like the end of their, I don't think they reach the end of their self-discovery process. I think it's a practice, a daily practice, and sometimes people go back to sleep and sometimes they stay awake and they keep learning. We build a relationship with our fragmented psyche, right? I build a relationship with my inner child and those places where they got separated. And when you're doing that, you go back to steps 1 and 2, right? So that you can go and do your soul retrieval. Bringing it all home feels so fantastically whole and complete. It becomes a daily practice to develop trust within our psyche. When information is brought to that surface, will we act upon it with compassion and understanding, or will we act upon it with disdain? Because our inner child only learns to trust us when it knows that whatever it brings to us, we will do something with that. We won't ignore it. We use our new language of this mind-body to raise our vibration and our consciousness. Our frequency comes up to new levels of choosing in. We can't sit on a fence anymore, because if you're sitting on the fence, you've chosen out. You have to say yes. You have to act quickly. You have to choose in 100% to whatever it is that you're doing, or you're going to miss the completeness of whatever it is that you're doing. And if you want to say no to something, say no. No is not a bad word. It just means that you are managing what it is that you want to learn and how you want to learn it. It's kind of like a multilingual, multisomatical process of transmutation. We're learning all these new languages and how to interpret. So when we choose to operate out of ease and grace, we actually attract more ease and grace. And we send a new message that nothing is wrong with us. Everything is right with us. And when I'm sending all is well and all is right, what do I get back more of? Evidence that all is well and all is right, that I'm taken care of, that the universe knows me, recognizes me, and is loving me and conspiring for me, not against me. We choose to operate out of this ease and grace. We are sending a new message, right? And we are no longer victims. We're creators, manifestors, creatrix. We're divine beings. And we're bringing in more light as we surrender to the divine light within us. We start to allow ourselves to be, and our lives to be led by our highest self. And we step onto our soul path. So 4 is forgiveness. If we're choosing to forgive, we're learning about transcendence, because forgiveness is to give out something that you've had within you that you no longer want in you, and you're giving it, right? And it's a process of releasing and receiving, because once you release something, the universe abhors a vacuum, and it's going to bring something back to you that will fill that void. It's the most amazing little art of learning about currency, this currency of love. Love is a currency. And when you're in the flow where you're giving and receiving all the time, you can't hold on to love. You can't lock it away and throw away the key. You can't just divvy it out in little bitty drops and things. Love is a currency. It's a flow, and it goes where it goes, and it comes where it comes. When we forgive someone that we have perceived has offended us, we get an opportunity to check our own perceptions, right? And I will often say to myself, where in my life have I done this to someone? If I feel someone has betrayed me, where in my life have I betrayed someone, knowingly or unknowingly? And my subconscious information will bring that to my awareness so that I can heal that. because I don't want to create karma by default, and I don't want to hurt anyone. I want to know accountability for what it is that I'm putting out there. So oftentimes I'll use the Ho'oponopono because forgiveness isn't just saying I'm sorry. It has components, like authentic, sincere components. And, you know, I love to use it whenever I want to clear the energy between wounded hearts. Because, again, remember, people get hurt people hurt other people. So it's a matter of taking accountability, asking for forgiveness, saying you're sorry, thanking that experience for teaching you that something needed to let go, something needed to be set free, and then I love you. And oftentimes you're saying this to yourself because you deserve the love and the forgiveness for having thought you had to do it differently, for having put all this weight and responsibility on you to follow someone else's dreams and hopes for you, to worship the God of what other people think. When you can let that go, that's an amazing release where you can start just being you. And what do you want from life, and what are you giving back to life? We also want to make it right. So you can find that in this forgiveness process, the psychosomatic symptoms can go away because you're now making it right. You're no longer locking it away with inflammation and pain and other kinds of things that are cementing it into your cellular tissue. You're now able to process it and let it go, send it to the light for its own healing. It served you. It taught you something. So value that and honor that. In our past, we used to spend so much time with the psychosomatic symptoms, just heaping on the guilt and the shame. But now the Ho'oponopono, whatever forgiveness process, the Munakai fire ceremony to forgive, those kind of things are teaching us ritual and ceremony, and they're bringing it back to us a real true method for letting go, washing away that guilt and shame, setting us free from all the things that we believed that we were, because we're not defined by our mistakes. We're defined by our good fruits. And that's how I look at people. It's like, if I can see the good fruits, I know that they're good. I don't have to go looking through their garbage, right? I can just see that they're good and their light and their intention. And so the last thing is love. The last fifth choice is to love. We can withhold love or we can give love. Again, it's in that currency. So looking at all the places where maybe you're withholding love, choosing not to give fully of your heart, and holding grudges or holding back. It's the most powerful emotion, high vibration and frequency. It's what everything is created through, this love that runs through us. It's the highest narrative of truth and the alchemy of change. Love is the heart of it all. And so your sovereignty, your ability to dissolve fear and lower vibrational emotions by light energy becomes this great alchemy. Love is a currency. It's not to be contained or held. It has to be released. And it may not come back to you from where you set it out, right? This is one of the big lessons in life, is that you're loving someone and you're doing for them and you're giving to them and you just want that love back from them. So you're looking. You're just only looking in that one spot. I gave you so much love. When are you going to give it back? But what you're missing is all the love that's coming this way and all the love that's coming that way and that way and that way from all the other sources, because you're so focused on only getting it back from one place. So really just take the blinders off. Start to notice in your life where you're being loved. Let yourself be loved. That's a tough one sometimes for people. And cast your bread upon the waters. I've always loved this one, that it may return to you multiplied. It's like, the more love I give out there, the more good I do, the more service I do. It doesn't have to come back to me from the one place, because it's going to come back multiplied. It's going to come back in different ways that I'm not even aware of how it could come back. So there's no lack consciousness in the currency of love, no scarcity. Love is this beautiful abundance of the universe, and like attracts like. So look at what what's showing up around you, because like attracts like. And you can learn from opposites, or you can learn from the similarity, the likeliness. Saying I love you to others, doing mirror work, really building a deep, loving relationship with yourself, all contribute to the flow of abundance. And for me, the powerful attractor factor is gratitude, because gratitude is part of that love dimension. It's a simple expression from your heart to all dimensions. You're pulling in everything that you can possibly think that you're grateful for, and it's so expansive. You can have lists and lists and lists, but every time you have a gratitude statement, it holds the ability to change the emotional components of what's happening around you in a breath. In a breath, things can change so fast. It expands your auric field, it fortifies your chakras, meridians, and your psychic outreach. Gratitude is another language of love, because these emotions are language, right? So it's the connection from the divine. It's you being able to see through the eyes of God. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Love them anyway. Loving yourself anyway. Yeah, I messed up. I made a mistake. It wasn't a good look for me, but I love myself anyway. I forgive myself anyway. Everything runs through you, and this is what I want to leave you with. You are a bridge. You're the bridge between this earth sphere and a heavenly sphere. You stand in that. You bridge and connect. You draw down, you draw up from the earth, you draw down from the source, and all of it mixes and runs and flows through you. You're a sovereign being. You stand in your 100% pure channel of white light. And as you cleanse your emotions, that white light gets brighter and that channel gets more fluid, and you become this conduit of light that you are, right? So emotional evolution is just a process that's taking us from a place of where we feel that density, and we now are cleansing it out of our field, out of our resonance field. All of the lies, the rational lies that we tell ourselves, all of the secrets, all the shame, all the guilt, all those lower energies now allow us to climb higher up in, out of those ethers of sleep into this higher awareness of consciousness, where we are now engaging with our highest self. We're engaging with ascended masters. We're engaging with archangels. We're engaging with our guides and teachers in such a way that we can become powerful in not only our message, but in our contribution. Why are we here? What are we doing with our purpose? This is purpose driven to help the planet raise its consciousness, and that can only happen through evolutionary, emotional, evolution, just raising us up. So I really just want to thank you for the opportunity for myself to be reminded of all the things that I believe and all the things that bring me joy and gratitude, and this place where I am. Boy, 30 years ago, if you could have said, Renee, this is where you're going to be 30 years from now, I would have really? Oh man, that would be so exciting. That would be great, because the first 30 years were really tough. But these next 30 years have been this road of ups and downs and twists and turns, and sometimes it looks like you've fallen backwards a little bit, but you haven't. It's just you've come across another part of the trail that looks similar, right? Because your brain will tell you, oh, this is similar, this is different. I'm comparing, I'm judging. And it's just information. And if you're really accountable and you're open to learning and growing, you will evolve. We have no other choice but to evolve or die and leave the planet. But this is an exciting time, because collectively, we are working together. We're not doing it on our own anymore. And isn't that just phenomenal? 20 years ago was, I got to do that by myself. I got to get out there and make this happen. But now it's like collaboration. not only with physical beings, you know, in your own community, but collaboration with the Ascended Masters. Just showing up. What do you want me to do today? What's next? Where should I go? Bring it to me. And there it is. So I hope that this has been useful for you. If you have any questions, you can definitely, hit me up. And I appreciate you, Colton, for watching. And I appreciate you, Lori, for checking in. And just knowing that we're all in this together. And if there's anything that I can do for you that can help you to enjoy your self-discovery process deeper, let me know. Okay? My time is up. So thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Bye.